everyone, and welcome to Mastrius for this sneak peek with artist and mentor Greg Newbold, who will be discussing 7 steps to better picture making. At Mastrius, you get personal feedback, teaching advice, and support from a master artist of your choice, so you can reach your goals in your style at your pace. I'm your host, Marcia Korsbelt, and today I'm excited to introduce Mastrius mentor and award-winning master artist Greg Newbold. Greg has been drawing and painting his entire life. He earned a BFA in illustration from Brigham Young University and an MFA of illustration from the University of Hartford Art School. Throughout Greg's career, notable clients such as Simon & Schuster, Random House, Heinz Foods, HarperCollins, Smuckers, Pilgrim's Pride, Kleenex, Barnes & Noble, and the Wall Street Journal have commissioned his recognizable brand of artwork. He's also illustrated a dozen picture books for children. His passion for depicting the landscapes of the West have been a major focus in recent years. Greg's gallery works are currently represented by Medicine Man Gallery in Tucson, Arizona, David Erickson Fine Art in Salt Lake City, and Legacy and Manitou Galleries in Santa Fe, Mexico. His works are included in many corporate and private collections, including Zions Bank, Utah Transit Authority, Salt Lake City Corporation, Boy Scouts of America, and the Springville Museum of Art. I'm really excited to dive in. Greg, the floor is yours.
Enjoying the video? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when new Mastrius videos are added.
Thanks, Marcia. I'm happy to be here. We'll go ahead and dive right in. I'll give you a little bit of a review of some of the things I've done in my career. And
excellent.
I want to talk about today. So first off, anybody that wants to see more of my stuff, feel free to go ahead and visit my Instagram and my Facebook art page, Greg Newbold Art, or my website, gregnewbold.com. As was said, I've been doing art my entire career, going on 35 years now as a full-time artist. So a few miles under the belt. This is a early illustration that I did that actually continues to get reused to this day. I just got a call last week wanting to reuse this particular image. So as I was saying, go ahead and click over to my Instagram or my website to see more. And we will go from here. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so this is the image that I was telling you about that I did probably 25 years ago, and it's been very popular and been used over and over again by different clients, including one just last week that called to use this one. So it's always fun to have a popular image that keeps making you money after the fact.
Absolutely, and that tells such a story too.
It was a fun one. The client said, our theme is take time for a good book and do anything you want, just make it cool. So nice. It was just so fun to do this one. A few other things I've done, book covers. This one on the left here was a mystery cover. This one on the right was for a textbook. A couple of magazine illustrations that I've done over the years. This one's a parody of the famous Uncle Sam poster that has been used over and over again. This is the cover of my very first children's book. I got this book project. The call came in and said, we have this book that we want you to illustrate. I'd never done a children's book before. And of course, I said yes. And that's been a motto of my career is just say yes. And then you figure it out after that. And so I did this whole children's book, and it's still in print, and it still sells, and still makes me money. And it's been 25 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So that one's fun. These are a couple more book covers that I did for HarperCollins for their fantasy imprint. These are from a couple of my children's books. Winter Lullaby and Spring Song were these companion books that talked about where animals go when it gets cold and when they come back in the spring. So that was a really fun project. A couple of theater posters that I've done. Cyrano de Bergerac, and I always forget the name of this one. But I've done a lot of theater posters over the years. These two were done for the local zoo here. They had a unique exhibit of a white alligator that was found in the swamps of Louisiana, and
Oh, wow.
they rescued them as babies because they figured that they wouldn't survive having no pigmentation. So they rescued them, and they all raised and were living in zoos as adults. So, and we got to see him live, and it was kind of crazy. They really are just these white alligators with these bright blue eyes.
Oh, that's crazy.
That was really cool. So that was a lot of fun. Um, as was said, I went back to grad school a number of years ago, and a couple of my goals were to learn how to paint digitally and to learn how to paint with oil paint. And I'll talk a little bit about both those things. This is an example of one of my first experiments with digital painting, where I figured out how to use texture in my brushes. And you can see all of this texture here was created by hand and then scanned into
Oh,
Photoshop application, and then I could then paint using this particular texture, which mimics my acrylic gesso texture that I was using. So I could then make my digital paintings look very much like my acrylic paintings. So that was a big breakthrough for me. It led to a piece like this one that won just about every award you could win in the illustration community. So that was fun, and still quite popular. So I enjoyed doing that one. That one was done for Boys Life magazine. And then I also got into gallery painting, and this is an example of one of my gallery paintings. I think this one's about 36 inches wide, maybe 40. One of my landscapes, and I particularly love the western landscape, all of the areas surrounding where I live here in Utah. So that's a common subject that I like to go to. This is Mount Olympus. It's actually the view out my front porch.
really?
So I get to look at it every day when I go outside, and I've painted it a number of times. And this one was the biggest painting that I'd ever done at the time, 60 inches wide by 36 tall, and it's still one of my favorites. And here again, I didn't know how to paint that big. I just dove in and did it. So this is another one that's that same size. Every once in a while, I'm looking around and I see something and I know I have to paint it. And this one was actually seen off of the freeway on a drive trip, and the lighting was bad, but I knew we were coming back that way. And I said, when we come back that way, I got to stop and take pictures. And so I did. And that's the painting that resulted.
Wow.
I'll talk about drawing a little bit later, probably, but these are all drawings that happened because a friend during the COVID lockdowns, where everybody was sitting around at home, my friend said, everybody draw dudes with hats and post them, and we'll see if we can make this dudes with hats hashtag explode on the internet. So I did this guy right here. Oops, sorry about that. I did this guy right here, this Sam Elliott. He was the very first one that I did. And then I just kept doing them and did, I've probably done 3 dozen of these characters. Some of them were actual living characters like Buffalo Bill, and some of them movie characters, and some of them even animated characters. And then this character right here happens to be me. I had to do my own self-portrait.
I thought he looked familiar.
So that was a lot of fun. This one right here was an experiment, and experimentation is important. We'll get into that later. If you join the mentor group, I'm sure we'll talk a lot about experimentation. But I painted this picture on the left, submitted it to my gallery, and it ended up being chosen to be the cover of Western Art Collector. And that was quite the surprise and exciting to be on the cover of such a prominent art magazine. And that's led to more of my polyhawk paintings. And these are all done for as gallery paintings for my galleries. And this one was another experiment that I did earlier this year. It was a lot of fun. And this is the most recent painting that I finished and sent off to my gallery in Santa Fe. So that's typical of what I've been doing with my gallery work. I enjoy it a lot, and I look forward to doing for as long as I can continue to paint. So knock on wood, that's a long time, and just keep that show on the road. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about 7 steps to better picture making. And what I mean by that is, when I was teaching college courses for about 3 years at my alma mater, the kids would come in and they'd be all over the place. They had no concept of process and a repeatable process that allows you to consistently create work that is successful. And so the 7 things that I've laid out today here are think, and then idea sketch, thumbnail sketches, gathering effective reference, doing a final drawing and value study, and then a color study before you get to the final painting. And we'll go through the reasons why I think that's important here. These are a couple of quotes from some of my mentors. When you pan for gold, you don't use tweezers. Courtney Granner, he was one of my mentors. And he meant by this is, at the beginning of your process, every idea you have is a good idea. There are no bad ideas. Even if you think they're silly, write them down, because they may turn into something later. One of my other mentors said, I don't get ideas, I have ideas. The trick is remembering where I put them. And he meant there's always ideas. You just have to locate them, find them, and then implement them. And then my favorite mentor, Chris Payne, said, illustration is art done under the circumstances. And really, any piece of art you do is art done under the circumstances, because you can place your own ideas and limitations on your work, whether or not you have a client. And that's what I'm doing now with my gallery work, is I'll give myself a problem to solve and then figure out how to solve it. So first off, ideas, brainstorm all of your options. Anything goes. Talk to people, take notes, doodle, think out loud, be inspired by films and books and movies and music and anything that you get excited about. And don't edit anything at this point, because as I said, all ideas are good ideas at the beginning. Then once you have a list of options, you can choose from those options or combine ideas to create additional options. And then you can decide what your visual approach might be after you've taken stock of all of your potential options. This is typical of the kind of thing that I call the idea sketch. These are just like 2-inch doodles in my sketchbook. They're not detailed. They're basically shape oriented. I basically just want to get the idea down on paper in a way that I can understand where I'm going with it. A lot of times these sketches don't ever get shown to anyone other than myself. And I'll take those idea sketches and then expand on them once I've got a direction that I think works for what I want to do. And this is how I go about creating a more detailed thumbnail sketch. I'll add value, a little bit more fine detail, just so that the shapes and the arrangements are all something that I think will work. And the reason that I do this is I really firmly believe that idea, your small thumbnail sketches can convey the idea at any scale. So I take these very small thumbnail sketches and I don't just redraw them by eyeball. I'll actually blow them up larger so that I can retain the same shape relationships that I established in these little drawings. But then I'll understand that I need more detail. I need more information for my subjects. And these are all images that I gathered when I was doing a Christmas book that dealt with barnyard animals. So I gathered I gathered pictures of what might be Santa's reindeer. I had a Santa Claus, this is actually my dad, Santa Claus that I posed pictures for. And then these were all the different animal characters that were in the book. And I just needed to know what their anatomy looked like so that I could play with it and make something of it. But you can do that yourself. You can take your own photographs. You can scour the internet. You can get stuff out of books, you know, videos, wherever you need to go to get the information that you need for your painting. And then from there, I'll take and I'll do much more detailed value drawings. These are all drawings that I did by hand that I then brought into Photoshop and manipulated them digitally, adding value and highlights. And then I took these drawings. This is what I consider my final drawings before I go to my paintings. And then I'll do a color study. This is just a classroom example that I did of color study, just exploring different color combinations. My philosophy is as long as your value pattern works, meaning your light side and your shadow side are working together in a believable way, you can assign any color palette to your design, and it can work. And so this was just for me to show my students that you could choose different lighting schemes, different color schemes, and it would still be a believable figure if I kept my value pattern believable and correct. This is what that final digital painting looked like. This was for a book called The Little Match.
Oh, beautiful.
And it was a lot of fun. I had a great model, and the book turned out great. So how do you put all these pieces together? This is where I go from there. This is a typical spread that I would get from a magazine. This happens to be that Grasshopper Hunter spread that I got. This is all the art direction that I got. Here's the space that you have to fill. We need to have some place to put this title. All of this type can go on the second spread if you need to. If you want to use this entire space for the illustration, go ahead and do that. So I did. And this was my initial thumbnail drawing. This is only about 3 inches wide, but it conveyed the idea that I wanted. So I sent that to the art director. He loved it. I then gathered some more information, looked at what, you know, a bow and arrow might look like, grasshoppers. I got a kid in the neighborhood that was about the right age, obviously not Native American, but it worked. So I took photographs of him, and then I inserted the photographs that I took in to fit the design that I had already designed. And then I did another drawing. So that's what my final drawing looked like. And then of course the final painting ended up looking like this. So that's kind of how I go about my process. Here's a different way of going about similar things. I had done this farmers market poster for the local farmers market here, and they wanted to create a new poster. So I explored some different ideas of how I might pose my farmer. We ended up settling on this idea right here of him picking with the landscape in the background. And so I got pictures of the actual place, got some vintage pictures of a guy picking apples, took some photographs of myself that were in the same position as my sketch. So when I gather photographs, I'll take my sketch, I'll pose my models, make sure I like the lighting, and then I'll take photographs, and then I'll do another sketch. And that's how I usually will create anything that has a figure in it. And that's how my final painting turned out. So sometimes I start with an idea in my head, but no sketch, and I'll use my camera to sketch. So I had my friend BJ pose for this particular piece. The concept was an anti-tobacco ad based on the characters in the game Clue. So this is my Colonel Mustard And I happen to know BJ, who looks exactly like Colonel Mustard.
Perfect.
Yep, it was perfect. He even wears a monocle most days. He is quite a character. And so I knew he was perfect. I posed him. I took a bunch of different options. I could have used some of these other options if I had wanted, but I had settled on this particular pose. So I did a drawing of that, which was approved by the client, and then I did the painting. So this is another example of how I might use my camera to sketch. When I took these photographs, I grew up in a more rural area, and my aunt had some sheep on her property so that she could maintain an agricultural zoning so that her property taxes would stay small enough that she could afford as a widow. And so every spring we'd have these sheep sheared. We'd have a guy come in and shear the sheep, and there were only about 18 to 20 of them. And he'd come, and I thought it was fascinating. And so I took a bunch of photographs of this process, thinking someday I'm gonna do paintings. So during grad school, when I had given myself the assignment to learn how to paint in oil, I took all of these photographs and did dozens and dozens of these thumbnails. They actually assigned us one night homework was 50 different designs for your concept. And so I knew my concept was this sheep shearing. And so I stayed up probably till about 1 or 2 in the morning, cranking out all of these different thumbnail designs based on my photographs. And I kid you not, the 50th thumbnail was this one. This one ended up being the final idea that I liked. So then I did a small color study. This is about 12 inches by 9 by 12, something like that. And then the final painting, which is 24 by 32 inches.
Oh, wow.
So that's a little bit about creating a repeatable process that I think is helpful when you're trying to build a consistent look for your work and be consistently successful. When I was teaching at university, the kids sometimes would be frustrated that their artwork wasn't quite turning out the way they wanted, and I would have them mentally go back through their process. Did you do this step? Did you do this step? Did you do this step? Oh, well, you didn't take good photographs. That's why you can't do a good painting, because you don't have enough information, or whatever it was. And so I just encourage everybody to create a process that works for them. And it might be slightly different depending on how you like to work. But having a process that's repeatable has served me very well over the course of my career. These are just a few little advice things that I give everybody at the end of a workshop or whatever. Be true to yourself and be unique. Be the best you. Like, you don't need to copy anybody else. What you have to be an artist is already inside you. You just have to let it come out, and it comes out through hard work and a lot of time dedicated to it. Inspiration is everywhere. I see possible paintings just almost every day, everywhere I go. Oh, that'd be fun to paint. That'd be cool. You just have to keep your eyes open. Draw and paint all the time. Be willing to sacrifice, because a career in art is not easy. And there will be challenges. I say never miss a deadline. If you're just a gallery painter, you still have deadlines. Maybe you have a show coming up, or maybe you have a series of paintings that you want to do. And so set your own deadlines, and then try not to miss those deadlines, because you'll just end up being more productive as you go forward. And I always give my customers more than they're paid for. My favorite response is, "Oh, this is better than I even thought it would be." And always experiment. That's where you learn new things and you grow as an artist. Have fun. Art is supposed to be fun, and enjoy it, because not very many people are lucky enough to be able to do what we do for a living, and I love it. And so that's a little bit about what I'm all about. And of course, again, follow me at Greg Newbold Art on Instagram if you'd like. And I think I'll be back.
Well, that is awesome, Greg, because I know myself when I was starting out in art, and I think a big problem that new artists kind of run into is you'll see a beautiful reference photo and you're like, I need to paint that. And you instantly go right to your canvas. You're not thinking about
Right.
things of, value studies and thumbnails. And sometimes a beautiful photograph doesn't always make a great painting. It takes,
It's usually a good inspiration, but yeah, it doesn't often make the perfect painting. And then there's always the problem of you might not own that photograph. You might not have the right
exactly.
photograph. But if you base your paintings on your own experiences and your own photographs and your own ideas, then you can always tailor your idea to fit your own vision. And I think that's a better way to go.
Excellent.
It makes
And
it
in your
work.
Mastrius group, you'll be instructing your students and showing them how to take that reference photo they may have or that idea and how to make a beautiful finished painting by
Yeah,
using the
I
different
do.
steps.
I think it's an important and often overlooked part of the process is how do you get from point A to point B? It doesn't magically just fall out of the end of your brush.
No,
And so I've stressed over the years how important it is to have that kind of process built into what you're doing.
absolutely. Well, Greg, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. Before we close off, can I ask you one quick question? What is one piece of advice or encouragement you'd give an artist that you wish you had heard when you were starting out?
I'm gonna share one that everybody's heard, but it does not become less important, and that is draw all the time, draw always. And I'll give you a little example. I did a presentation a couple summers ago for a group of high school art teachers, and I interviewed about 24 of my friends that teach college art. And I said, what's the number one thing you wish your students had in their toolbox when they came to school? And the overwhelming answer was they don't know how to draw. And so I'm like, draw all the time, draw with a purpose, learn new concepts and new skills. Don't just repeat the habits that you have already discovered. A lot of people have bad habits, whether it's in the way they observe what they're trying to draw or the techniques that they use. Everybody develops habits, and some of them aren't good. And so have a focused learning when you go to draw, to try to learn how to draw accurately, try to learn how to draw out of your head with the knowledge that you have of, say, perspective or things. And once you combine all your drawing skills together, then you come to a point where you can design your pictures the way you want and have them still feel authentic. And I think that's really good. I mean, this is just a sketchbook that I grabbed off my shelf just to show, if I can flip it correctly. Let's see.
Oh, yeah.
These are all just drawings that I won't be able to flip it now because we're not on camera. But
there we go. Yeah.
So these are all, in fact, that's the drawing
Yes.
for
That's
this
what I'm trying to.
this painting right here. That's that drawing.
Beautiful.
So so that I'll draw all the time, as much as I can. If I'm just hanging out with the family and we're watching a movie or something in the evening, a lot of times I'll draw. I'll pull a piece of reference up on my phone and I'll draw. And those paintings end up those drawings end up turning into paintings very often, because I'll solve all of the problems of design and value pattern before. See, that one was in the slideshow as well.
Oh, yeah, the hollyhocks.
So they all started out as drawings.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll work out the design and the value pattern and everything before I get to the paint. A lot of those questions that crop up during the painting process have been solved already.
Perfect.
And so it makes the actual painting process less frustrating because you're not trying to solve the drawing and the design problems when you're trying to figure out how to solve the paint and the color problems.
Yeah, absolutely. One problem at a time.
Yeah. So it just I feel like it works out so much better for me to do that.
Excellent. Well, thanks for sharing.
My big advice is just learn how to draw as best you can, and have it be focused learning, not just doodles. You know, give yourself a drawing assignment and try and figure out how to draw as well as you can.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thanks everyone for watching. If you'd like to learn more about Mastrius, check us out at mastrius.com. Everything we do is live, interactive, and online, so you can get your questions answered in real time and learn exactly what you need to reach your goals, whatever they are. I'm a member at Mastrius and I absolutely love it because I'm learning and growing my skills fast, and the community is extremely supportive and welcoming. I hope you'll join us. Find out more at mastrius.com.
Come join my group.